meditation service. Jack and I were part of a meditation service. As soon as we had read a book about Edgar Cayce, we found the center in New York City and had no idea what we were going to be facing, but we certainly liked the book about Edgar Cayce, and it changed our lives. So we went up these stairs in this dank little place, and we were greeted by the oldest people on the planet, and all the people there were quite elderly. I guess we were the youngest, and they welcomed us in, and they got us involved in meditation. And the energy of those people, it was phenomenal. And we thank God every day that we read about Edgar Cayce. Even though I was brought up Methodist, and I went to church every Sunday for 2 services because I sang in junior choir and senior choir, they were not friendly to us. My father was a Mohawk Indian and my mother was a Russian immigrant, and somehow we were not treated very well at the church. But you don't know what prejudice is, you just know you're not accepted like everybody else. So when we got into the Cayce material, we were so welcomed, and the love exuding from these elderly people, it was like amazing. And as we came in, all of a sudden, all these young people were coming up the stairs and coming to the center. That was a little hard to find. It was just an awakening that was phenomenal. And so that was the start of our Wednesday meditation, and that has continued ever since we experienced it. So I hope that you can chant with me. I'm going to do a call and response, and don't listen to your voice or anything, just kind of just get into the flow of what's happening. I open to love. Inside waiting for me. To free me up. To the friend I want to be. I bring love to all. Divine love to all. To spread the word. That we are all one. Compassion for all. Brings kindness and love. Let light flow through me. Light, divine light. Love is the source. Of all life. Pure love. Radiant love. I open to love. inside waiting for me. To free me up. To the friend I want to be. I bring love to all. Divine love to all. To spread the word. That we are all one. Compassion for all. Brings kindness and love. Let light flow through me. Light, divine light. Love is the source. Of all life. Love is the source. Of all life. Pure love. Radiant love. Pure love. Radiant love. Om. Om.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Jack.
Did you miss me last week?
Yes, we did.
You did.
First time here.
Oh, this is your first time here? Okay. Well, it was a last minute thing came up, and we put it out on an email we put out on the internet. It wasn't going to happen last week, but we never informed Laura, who was always at the church, and so it was a mistake. They do happen even here in perfect unity.
We forgive you.
You forgive me?
Yes.
All right, good. You got the first principle down. All right. I want to share a story with you that no one knows who first originated it, but it has existed down through the ages and has been an inspiration to people of every nation and culture and station in life. For centuries, this is that story. Long ago, an Eastern monarch, plagued by many worries, harassed on every side, called his wise men together. He asked them to invent a motto, a few magic words that would help him in time of trial or distress. It must be brief enough to be engraved on a ring, he said, so that he could have it always before his eyes. It must be appropriate to every situation, as useful in prosperity as in adversity. It must be a motto wise and true and endlessly enduring. Words by which a man could be guided all his life, in every circumstance, no matter what happened. The wise men thought and thought and thought, and then finally came to the monarch with their magic words. There were words for every change or chance of fortune, declared the wise men. Words to fit every situation, good or bad. Words to ease the heart and mind in every circumstance. And the words they gave the monarch to engrave on his ring were these: this too shall pass away. This too shall pass away. This too shall pass away. It's interesting, a couple of weeks ago, I ran into a person that was talking about a guru that gave an illustration about walking. And the illustration, according to this person, was that you know to put one foot out on the ground in front of you, and then without thinking, the next foot goes out beyond that and steps down. And so it is, foot after foot, you find yourself walking, but hardly without a thought of it. And you don't ever get to a place where you cling to the step you just took. And she used this illustration, this master used this illustration to reveal the changing conditions and circumstances of life. They never stop changing. The universe never stops moving forward. Everything is always moving. So you can't get it to stand still. Although you may attempt to, and people do, cling to something that is taking place. in hopes of hanging on to it, because if they had a happy time or a joyful occasion in some particular village or town or some camping trip place, they will sometimes tend to cling to it. And then they find that it doesn't really hold the initial happiness they had, the initial joy and inspiration that they had passes also. And maybe you can identify with this if you go back to your first romance, the first person that you were romantic with, back at a time when you sat down and maybe drank a Coke or a milkshake together, and you couldn't wait to be with each other, and you would talk endlessly about things, and you just were enamored with each other. Well, some people think that you can somehow arrange life in such a way that you can have that experience of happiness. And some people think, yes, you could. If you had enough money, you could arrange conditions and circumstances to suit your every expectation and desire. But we know that it doesn't work. We know it doesn't work because we know of people that seemingly have gained all the money you could possibly want for a lifetime. And we also know people that have gained power and prestige and popularity, but they too have not found that place that they can make life stand still so that they can finally enjoy life right here, right now, and not allow it to get away from them. And even though we still do that, people still think that there are things you can cling to and hang on to. It doesn't work. The masters say it doesn't work. And this master is giving an illustration about walking so that you don't ever cling to a particular step. Likewise, we can't cling to any particular circumstances or conditions. I can give, personal ideas that I went through with my life. I'm sure you can too. Go back in your life. And there were times when you think, well, this is good. This should not ever end. I remember a number of occasions when I thought, wow, I've made it. This is it. Back in New York City, I had a screenplay accepted, my first screenplay accepted by General Artists Corporation and a particular producer. And at the same time, I got a job on Madison Avenue through the same agent, of course, writing copy for more money than I ever made. Up until that point, I really was but a starving writer. And I thought, I've made it. I've absolutely arrived. But over a short period of time, less than a year, it all dissipated and went away. And what's even worse is that some people cling to some unhappiness that has occurred in their life. They cling to it and they use it as a definition of their victimness, so that at least it's their story. So they'll tell you their story about how things just went awry for them, or they had this thing going and this marriage broke apart, or they had this thing going, but somebody came along and disturbed it, sued them, they lost this, or they cling to it, and it's their story. But you see, the whole idea of this particular ancient story is that people should become enlightened enough to know that life doesn't ever stand still. It's ephemeral. It keeps moving. And when you know that this too also will pass away, you don't become too high on a particular set of circumstances, or you don't be taken down too low, but you know enough to just keep moving forward, moving on in life. So last week on Sunday, last Sunday, I talked about Eckhart Tolle's concept that leads to enlightenment. And not only Eckhart Tolle, but the Beatles sang a song about it, Let It Be. Let it be. You also need to know that that entails the concept of letting it go. You let it be, but you also may need to let it go, not cling to it in any way, so that you're not at odds with life as it's happening. This is what we are in the process of doing in Unity. We're in the process of awakening our consciousness or our minds to live more effectively, beautifully, harmoniously in a higher level of consciousness. Or you can call it God consciousness. For everything that you read about in the New Testament is leading toward this enlightened awareness of being one with God as life continues its process. And so, when we learn to allow things to be what they are and to let them go as their time comes and their time goes, we actually sustain a level of peace that the world does not embrace. When Jesus speaks about the peace that surpasses the understanding of the world, what he's talking about is that we in the world, especially in our Western culture, but certainly in almost every culture, we don't have that peace. Our peace, most people, whatever culture they're in, they will only have peace when their particular, ideas are being accepted, or their expectations are being accepted, or their desires or their demands are being accepted by conditions and people around them. Then they have this momentary peace, and they say all's right with life. But then it isn't too long before that peace dissipates. And then something else is going on. And so now they don't have peace. And Eckhart Tolle is telling us that we need to be awake enough to question our inner awareness, so that if we occasionally check in, we find out if we are resisting life as it is. If we check in and if we're feeling anxious or having limited emotional negative feelings, we need to check in and say, why? Why am I feeling this? And you'll discover that what you're doing is you're resisting life as it is. Inwardly, you're in resistance to what is taking place around you. And Eckhart Tolle is saying, if you discover that, you are in resistance, opposing that which you can't do anything about because it's happening just the way it is. If you recognize that, you can also begin to release that resistance and have peace. And so I'm going to share with you what this master, Sion master, has to say regarding enlightenment. Hearing, seeing, speaking, reading, working, and meeting people, nothing in life is stationary for even an instant. All of it disappears like the wind. It never stays. Nevertheless, your intellect tries to take hold of good or bad things. People tend to be unhappy because the result wasn't what they wanted, or they tend to hold on to a moment of happiness and never want to leave that place. Instead of doing this, they should just walk. Just keep moving forward. This is the direct path on which you can obtain enlightenment. This is not something we haven't researched before, because in Unity we know that you can measure your advancement toward enlightenment by the amount of peace of mind you are able to sustain. In Unity, we know that we can measure our awareness, our level of awareness, by the amount of peace of mind we are able to sustain while living life. But we're not going to be able to sustain very much peace of mind if, in fact, we're not awake enough to take our own awareness to task. We have to be awake enough to know when we're entertaining negative emotions, when they're rising within us, anxiety, depression, concern, and worry. We need to check within. We just can't say these conditions and circumstances shouldn't be happening. This is what many people do. Many people go through life at odds with life, and they keep blaming conditions and people outside themselves for not having peace. But you see, the choice to have peace is our own. We are, in fact, the cause of whatever limited feelings we may be embracing. Unless we take to task our own awareness and check in when we are having these negative feelings and emotions, we will always live in that state of duality where it seems to us that the conditions and circumstances occurring are causing me to feel the way I feel. So I'm justified. But you see, life then, as you see it, is determining who you are. And if you decided that at some point you wanted to get involved in spiritual awakening, you came to Unity, or you read a book, or you went to see a guru, and you wanted to find a way to have more peace, you cannot get beyond this truth expressed by Eckhart Tolle. You need to be awake enough to check within when you are having anxiety, depression, worry, concern. Check in and see if you're not resisting the conditions and circumstances around you. Because you don't have to do that. Even when they're not meeting your expectations or your desires, you can still be okay with those conditions and circumstances by using the ability to forgive. By knowing that I can release this, I can forgive this, no matter what it appeared to be. I don't have to take this to heart. And I can forgive this and release it and let it go and move on. That's the thinking of the masters down through the ages. They have the ability to release, let go, move on, and be present and flowing with conditions and circumstances no matter how they are going. And that requires some meditation. It requires not just rushing out of your house every day with the newspaper to get your cup of coffee at Starbucks or whatever, and getting yourself all high for about a half hour and then reading the headlines and all that's going wrong with the world. And you go about your life that way, but you're never going to find enlightened awareness unless you are capable of taking some time every day to meditate. And in meditation, you are recognizing that you need to learn how to just be still, not to react, not to want, not to fear, not to blame. So you are capable of being in charge of how you feel. You are in charge of your own peace of mind. But that takes practice, and it's not easy, because we've been so long conditioned by the world itself to live in that state of duality. We believe that when things are happening, they're causing me to feel the way I feel, but that's not true. You can choose to still have peace. In fact, when you do that, the answers that you need to bring more harmony to the conditions and circumstances in which you find yourself rise more easily if you're willing to let those conditions and circumstances go. Let them be. Move with them. Forgive, release, bless, move on. So you could take that as an affirmation. Forgive, release, bless, move on. There was an editor who lived, about 100 years ago. And his name was Paul Hamilton Hayne. When he came upon this story about the monarch, which is thousands of years, possibly thousands of years old, he was so inspired that he wrote in his newspaper, he was an editor at the time, he wrote in his newspaper about this concept of this too shall pass away. And then he went on to write a poem which became almost universal without there being any internet, so that it couldn't go viral. It was discovered that thousands of people took this poem that he printed in his newspaper article, and they kept it with them in their pocketbook, their wallet, their purse, everywhere. It was almost as popular as the original story itself. But it goes like this. Art thou in misery, brother? Then I pray, be comforted. Thy grief shall pass away. Art thou elated? Ah, be not too gay. Temper thy joy. This too shall pass away. Art thou in danger? Still let reason sway, and cling to hope. This too shall pass away. Tempted art thou, in all thine anguish lay one truth to heart. This too shall pass away. Do rays of loftier glory round thee play? King-like art thou. This too shall pass away. Whenever thou art, wherever thy footsteps stray, heed these wide words. This too shall pass away. I remember when I got the rights to the story about Win a Lot of Cash. I had spent, in my early misbegotten youth, I spent enough time at racetracks, playing horses, playing poker and playing horses and things like that. It was part of my misbegotten youth. But later on in life, I was always interested in championship sporting events. I'm not necessarily involved in boxing or anything like that, but I will always try to tune into a champion boxing match, or, you know, the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness. Those horse races are very interesting to me. I like to hear the narrators talking about the backstory of the trainers and the jockey and the horse itself. And it's all very interesting to try to see how life works in these huge, beautiful sporting events. Well, I chanced upon a sporting event. I wasn't even looking for anything like that, but the television was on, and there was the All-American Futurity, which is the richest quarter horse race in the world, was going to take place at any time right then and there. And they were interviewing some of the owners and the people. And you know that in this quarter horse race, your horse just cannot be entered for the amount of money that's required to enter. Your horse has to go through like 3 or 4 grueling races against the best quarter horses that there are. Champion quarter horses are shipped in from all over the world to compete to get into the All-American Futurity. But they go through it because you got 4 races where you're up against the fastest quarter horse races there are in the world, and then you get to the American Futurity. Those that have survived and won those races, there's only 10 now. 10 of the fastest quarter horse races in the world are going to run for $1.5 million. And I was watching this, and the backstory on one horse, whose name was Win a Lot of Cash, was this African-American couple. And they interviewed them, and they said, the person on the microphone said, I understand you were offered $500,000 for your horse. And last week. And they said, yeah. And we were actually offered $1 million after that. And you didn't take it. And they said, no. And she said, why? She said, because we want to be the first African Americans that won the All-American Futurity. And I said, wow, what a story that is. You know, want to know why? Because I know quarter horse racing. It's a white man's sport. There are no black people that own horses that fine. And the fact that this guy, these people, had a horse in the All-American Futurity was absolutely out of touch with everything. And as it turned out, the backstory on this was the most fascinating story you could ever imagine. I immediately, oh, by the way, their horse won. Oh, won that race, went away. I've got the video of it because I immediately got on the phone, made contact, tried to make contact with them, and finally did, but it took about a week before I could get a hold of them, because I wanted to get the rights to that story, to make a movie about it. And it turned out that the person this big shot that owned the horse racing newspaper of that area, actually bought the rights to the story, or at least gave the money for the rights to that story. And it wasn't but a year later that this person couldn't do it, didn't have the script, or it didn't work, or whatever. And so I had called the owners again, and they said, no, you know, if you want to, you can put an option on the rights, and then you can try to produce it, which I did, along with my son, Dell. And I thought, I was living high. I thought, there's no way. You should know the story. After we went down and we spent a week with them, and they told us their story. First of all, you should know these people were dirt poor. They actually got a hold of this horse because it was about to be sent to the glue factory. Nobody, this horse was in a barn, guy that sells quarter horses down there of every rank and kind, had this horse, and nobody could keep him relaxed or at peace in the stall, kicking everything apart. He was just a crazy animal, and they were afraid of him, and they thought, you're never going to get this horse to run in a straight line. So they were going to put him in a glue factory. And these people who had purchased a horse for a few $100s there on occasion, and they only raced that horse, not at racetracks. These poor people would race with other farmers that had horses, and they had a makeshift racetrack. And that's what they did. It was like, it wasn't traditional racing. But when they saw this horse, and that they could get him for a prayer, they bought him. And their kids, how dare you? How dare you interrupt my story? So you're back there, why don't you come out sooner? All right, never mind. You see the note I just got? All right, I'm going to share this with you because this is we have a long prayer list. She's telling me, finish up. How dare her do that? Anyway, if you want to know how that story ended, read my book. It's in the bookstore. So we're going to meditate together. Take a couple of deep breaths as you release your breath. Release any pressing concerns you may have brought with you. Do you know that you have the ability to just let it be and let it go? And get back to just breathing and allowing and flowing. Just breathing, allowing, and flowing. As you become willing to just be present, letting go any limited fears or concerns, allowing the moment to be what it is, you start to enter that divine peace. That is the peace of your own core nature. That is your divine soul consciousness. And it helps if you bring to mind a mantra, a spiritual thought. And then you can feel your way into the oneness of all life. So gently bring to mind this thought. Everything I look upon, everything I see is only God waiting for me. Everything I look upon, every one I see, is divine at the core of their being and one with me. Everything I look upon, everything I see, is only God waiting for me. in this refined level of awareness. We will offer the names of those that have been submitted to our prayer list. As Norma calls the name, just let this light, joy, flowing feeling remain.
Emma the dog, Wouter Verhagen, R.H., Celine Henry, Stray Cats in Village, Ann Ba, Weedham Manelia, Faye Russell, Angel Manning, Pet Shelters, Bears Nantuk and Tougher, Schreiner's Circus, David Marilyn, DeCarlo and family, son of Sandy McMinn and her son's dad, Fred and Laura Stone, Stone Ridge Farm, Arundel, Maine, Brian Christman, John Dolman and his dog Sky, Joyce the elephant, stores not selling puppies, no puppy mills, Sue H., Elzazara, Elzira, Daniel, Layla, and Phyllis Naranjo, Elise, Rodney, Amy Howe, Zeke, Chris, Anna, Ian, Noah, Harvey, Wilma, Carl, Megan, Christina Pachero, Sandy Spahn, Sean and Kendra, Jimmy Mack, Julie and Paul, Sue Mack, Danielle and Chris, Sue and Jay, Coulter Dorn, the Lopez family, Robert Mayer, Marquet Tucker, Chris Mayer, Ryan Whitney, Stephen, Tracy, Ross, Andrea, neighbor Susan, daughter Ely, son Andrew, those who are against me, fill their hearts with acceptance, love, and understanding. Lexi Maxwell, Jennifer Millen and family, Kate Beltrami and family, Rodney Finding Work, Bradford Howard, Louis Howard, Lupita Ramirez, Robin Harris, Judy Coleman, Poppy, Hare family, David, Community of Wounded Knee, South Dakota, Veronica Woods, Mackenzie Gollin, Gollin family, the homeless and unhoused, Ralph Hilborn and family, Gizmo, Alec, Violet, Sarah, Zeb, Bill, Karen, Jordan, Laura, Marianne, Patrick, Amelia, Elizabeth, Sia, Margaret, Pam, Molly, Julie, Haley, Nick, Carol, Saul, Celeste, Ruth, Lisa, Michelle, Michael, Trudy, Mikey, Sue, Gary, Joey, Stanley, Cindy, Royalty, Brittany, Erie, Elaine, Lynn, Sierra, Dominique, Barney Smith, Sharon and Bill Jansen, Joseph Avila, Brian Benedict, all of us, Rigpa Bluejoy, Ellen, Rick, Brandon, Quinn, Waylon, Becky, Vanessa, Tim, Daniel Human, Philip Tainton, Sue and Jane, Anthony Gonzalez, Sr., Marcia, Brenda, Diane, Stephen Jansen, Aria, Betsy Calhoun, Sue King, Bria, Kim, Judy, Hal, Andrea, Sami, Ruth Pearson, the Albert family and friends, Kyle, Taylor, Joel, Christine, Alex Jr., Raymond, Tina, Michael Spahn, Diane Spahn, Dan Spahn, Livia, Sharon, Irina Smith, Annabelle, Lavina, Jamie, Eris and Tess, Petra, Teresa, Lavinia, Twee, Austin, Cara, Marshall, Zach, Holly, Johnny, Tristan, Karma, Maria, Astoria, Calliope, Brandlin, Alex, Caleb, Rowan, Chad Thies, Larry Thies, Steph Herberts, Canyon and Juniper Thies, Elise, Cantaloupe, Trenton, Heidi, Michelle and family, Amanda and Rudy, William, Louise Howard, Christopher, Isaac, Rodney Eppinger, Virginia, Holly, Sean, Jack, Nate, Terrell, Gary, Cookie, Lynn, Sia, Tony, Taylor, Lucy, Rowan the dog, Jeff and family, Susan W., Luke A., Brett and Nate G., Anthony, Barbara, Courtney Chance, Pam, Bobby, Debbie, Rayanne and Bob, Chester, Laura, Amanda, Pat, Rebecca, Jessica, Mary and Lynn, Michelle, Asa L.K. McComer, Janice M.M., Robert L.M., Victory K.L., Bonnie Eckert's family, Amy A.K., Robert C.M., Kurt Fisher and family, Michelle, Evan, Sebastian, Tim, Greg, Renee Sanger Albert, Ed, Becky, Guy on bike with orange spokes, Pat Johnson, Chris Joke, the Martell family, Miles, Terry, Mary, Gregory Lee Payne. Dear God, guide and bless the victims of the California fires. Still the winds, and please protect the firefighters. If you would like to call a name, you can do so at this time.
S. Casey and family. S. Daniel and family. D. Matthew and family.
We see this healing light surrounding the prayer box. And all the people's names that have been submitted throughout the month, we see them healed, physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Let us take a moment to embrace the vision of the new heaven in earth. So we see this divine awareness rising in the consciousness of everyone sharing this Boulder community with us. And this divine Christ consciousness rising in the awareness of everyone sharing the state of Colorado with us. And it's spreading, inspiring, and creating more and more of the revelation of the presence of the living God rising in the consciousness of everyone sharing these United States of America with us. And so it is that it moves to every nation and every culture in the world, restoring the pristine harmony that exists in all creation. And we see this taking place in the attitudes and the awareness of all the creatures that share this planet with us. So that love is expressed in relationship to everything that lives, acknowledging that everything that lives is sacred and part of God. And to this we pray. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and God is love. To this we say, Amen. We will take an offering now for unity. And those of you that are watching this on live stream, I invite you to participate by making an offering to Unity of Boulder. You can scroll down and find that place that says donate. And so you make yourself a part of the growing awareness of the divine presence. And everyone here can bring into their hands that gift they'd like to make to Unity of Boulder. And we'll bless it with this offering prayer. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, because I give. And so it is.
In each decision I make, how will it affect the future and all life? In each decision I make, how will it affect the future and all life and all life?
Join me now, please. We dedicate this tithe to the will and the work of the Spirit of truth, the Spirit available to each of us, the Spirit that joins all of us. We dedicate this tithe to the victory of the Spirit of truth. Amen. We have any special events coming up? I think we do. I think we're starting a young adults class next week. Yeah, tune in. Come on, if you're interested in getting involved with a discussion group in this class, you can check in with Unity of Boulder. Just call in, and they'll let you know when it's going to begin and what it's all about. All right?
That's all right.
We have tea and cookies for anybody who'd like to stay and chat.
We have the most incredible gifts in the gift store. We have books, but we have the most incredible gifts. So check it out, and they're at a really good price.
Through these doors to your left into the bookstore. To everyone, have a beautiful night.